guys, Brad from simpleguitar.com here with another video for you, and thanks for watching. This is going to be a lot of fun because today we're going to talk about what are arpeggios on the guitar. I remember the first time I ever heard that word arpeggio, I was confused. I didn't know what the heck it was because it sounds like some big fancy word and, you know, what the heck is that, right? It's confusing. So today we're going to break down what arpeggios are on the guitar, why it's going to be really good for you to know them, and hopefully make it simple so that arpeggios don't overwhelm you. So what the heck is an arpeggio? Well, basically, if you've been playing guitar at all and you've played some chords, the good news is you've already played arpeggios, because arpeggios in their most basic form on the guitar are what make up the chords that we play. So if you've learned like your G chord or your C chord or your D chord, when we're strumming them all together, we think of that as a chord, right? Because we're playing those notes simultaneously. But to make it an arpeggio, all you have to do is pick out the notes individually like this. And you can pick out different patterns. So you could pick it straight through, or you could do stuff like this. Either way, it's called arpeggiating the chord when we play the individual notes, because what we are playing is we're playing the arpeggio. Same thing with finger picking. If you know finger picking stuff, you're playing arpeggios, okay? So arpeggios really aren't something that's totally different and out of the ordinary for guitar. It's just something that we don't think of as much if we're just playing chords all the time. So if you've already been playing chords, you've been playing arpeggios as well. You just change how you play your chords, and you go from strumming chords to doing arpeggiating with them by picking out the individual notes. And there you have arpeggios. Now, the other way that an arpeggio can be described, if we get a little bit more technical with it, is an arpeggio, just like a chord. I did a video about where chords come from on the guitar and how we can find them. And it's the same thing for arpeggios. An arpeggio is every other note of a scale. So for example, if we have a major scale like this one, if we play every other note of that scale, that's an arpeggio. Now, for me, when I was in jazz band, we would play warm-ups where we would play through scales like that. So we'd play up 9 notes. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is the same as 1, and 9 is the same as 2, and then we go back down. Then we would play the arpeggio after, so I'd play 1, and then 3, and then 5, and then 7, and then 9, and back down 7, 5, 3, 1. That is an arpeggio as well. But that's not something that is as useful to playing. And so we're going to talk about doing some playable arpeggio shapes and how we can find those on the guitar. So far we have arpeggios that are the chords that we usually play, that we're used to playing, and then we have every other note of a scale. Since an arpeggio is made up of every other note of a scale, or they're the same notes as a chord, just played individually instead of simultaneously, we can find those notes at different places on the fretboard. So I'm going to show you this cool exercise that my buddy Daryl did in one of his videos. You can go check out Daryl Powis's channel if you want to get some more really cool fretboard stuff from him. He's really good at it. But I got this exercise from him, and it's a great exercise, and you can build on it and expand on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a chord like C, for example. If I have my C chord here, let's talk about what notes we're playing. Now, if you haven't seen my video about memorizing the notes on the fretboard, having started memorizing notes on the fretboard is going to make finding these arpeggios in different places a whole lot easier. So if you haven't checked out this video about memorizing notes on the fretboard, go check out that video, and that's going to really help you as you go through and do this. Now, with our C chord here, let's identify what notes we are playing there. Your first note on the 5th string is a C. And then on the 4th string, I'm playing an E. And then my open 3rd string is G. And then my 1st fret on my 2nd string is another C note. And then my open 1st string is another E note. So I'm playing 5 strings, but I'm only playing 3 notes. And that is the arpeggio for that chord. If I just pick it all out, then I just arpeggiated the chord. Cool, right? But if I know that this note is C and this note is E and this note is G, then something cool that you can do is you can practice finding those arpeggios in different places on the neck. So the first thing you could do is start with single strings. So you could first find, I have a C note here, I have an E note here, and I have a G note right here. And you could practice playing that C chord and then play your C here and your E here and your G here. That's all just on my 5th string. So I'm playing C on my 3rd fret, E on my 7th fret, and G on my 10th fret. Right? And then I could do it on my 4th string. I could play my C here. And on my 4th string, I could find my C, which is the 10th fret. And I could play E, which is the 14th fret or the 2nd fret. And then G on the 5th fret or all the way up on the 17th fret. Right? So I could play C. And if you play the chord and then you play the arpeggio, you get to hear how it all fits together. And I can go through and I can do that on my 3rd string too. So I could play my C chord and then I have a G that's open, right? So I would find my C, which is the 5th fret. And then I would have an E right here on the 9th fret. And then I could play G again on my 12th fret. So I could play C here. And that's my arpeggio. Right? So doing this on single strings and doing it on each of your strings is going to make life a lot easier, because then you're starting to find how these notes work together with these different chords. And then you can use that when you're improvising, when you're writing songs, when you're learning songs. Because if you know what chord is being played, playing the arpeggio that makes up the chord is automatically going to sound good. And so if you've done a little bit of homework and you've found some of these arpeggios in different places, it's going to make your life easier. Now, once you've done single string stuff, you can move on to doing 2 strings, because we can find these arpeggios on 2 strings as well as not just on 1 string. So for example, I could take my C chord here, and then on my 6th string, I could find my C note, and I'm going to build that arpeggio by doing 2 strings. So I'm going to find my C note, which is the 8th fret on my 6th string. And then my E note is the 12th fret on my 6th string. And then for the G, I want to go to the next string. So I'm going to go to the 5th string, and that is the 10th fret. I've got 8, and then 12, and then 10 on the 5th string. So I'd play my C chord, and then play that arpeggio. And then I would do it again. I would find another C, like the C right here. And I would do C with my chord. And then I would find my C on the 5th string. And then my E, which is the 7th fret from the 3rd. So my C is 3rd fret. My E is the 7th fret. And then on the 4th string, I'm going to go to the next string. So I have a 2-string arpeggio. And I'm going to find G on the 4th string, 5th fret. Right? And you can do this with every pair of strings and find this everywhere on the guitar. And you play the chord, and then you find the arpeggio in a different spot. So you would put your C and start on your 6th string, then on your 5th string, then on your 4th string, then on your 3rd string. Now, one thing to remember, and we've talked about this with scales, is when you hit your 2nd string for scales or for arpeggios, the pattern that you may be used to on the other strings is going to shift up 1 fret. Because here's the cool thing. When we find this arpeggio pattern For example, like we did here on your 8th fret on the 6th string, and then 12, and then 10 on the 5th string, that gives us a little 2-string pattern that we can play anywhere we find that C note. So if we go up from our C note, wherever we are, we go up 1, 2, 3, 4 frets, which is 4 half steps. That's going to give us our E note. And then on the next string, I'm going to be 2 frets lower. So I'm going to be up 2 frets higher from my C note on the next string. And that gives us our 5th, or the G note in this case. So I'm going to have the 1st, and then my E is called the 3rd because it's the 3rd note of the scale. Okay. And then the G is the 5th because it's the 5th note of the scale. Remember how we did 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 7, 5, 3, 1, right? So I'm finding the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th of that scale, and those are the same notes that make up the chord, but that creates a little pattern that we can repeat anywhere. And then I can find, like my C here, is the same pattern. But when I go to my 3rd string, and I'm using my 3rd string and my 2nd string, my C is here, my E is going to be 4 frets higher, and then my G, instead of being 2 frets lower or 2 frets higher, right in between those, right? Instead of it being the 7th fret, if I play C on my 5th fret on the 3rd string, and then I play E on the 9th fret of my 3rd string, instead of the G being the 7th fret, it has to shift up, and it's going to be on the 8th fret. But then again, if I do it on my 2nd string, for example, up here, then the pattern is the same as the other string. So just remember your 3rd and 2nd string together, the pattern is going to shift up 1 fret on your 2nd string. Now, that's one 2-string pattern I can use. I can do another 2-string pattern with this because I could play my C chord, and then I could play my C on the 6th string, 8th fret right here. And then I could play my E note on the 5th string, and then my G note on the 5th string as well. So if I do that, I'm playing 8 for C on my 6th string. And then on my 5th string, I'm going to play the 7th fret for E. And then I'm going to play the G, or the 5 on 10 on the 5th string. And so instead of having 2 notes on my 6th string and then 1 note on the 5th string, I'm going to do 1 note on the 6th string and 2 notes on the 5th string. And same thing, that's a little pattern that we can repeat and play that arpeggio anywhere you have a C note. And not just on the C chord either. This will apply to other chords. Because for example, if I play an E chord, as long as I know where my E is and I want a major arpeggio to match the major chord, anywhere I find an E note, I can play one of these 2-string patterns. Right? It works out everywhere. Now that's just doing 2-string patterns that are close together and are very playable. But then on top of that, you can go on to 3-string patterns, and you could find 4-string patterns and 5-string patterns and 6-string patterns. But the trick is that arpeggios are just the same as your chords. So if you know different chord shapes around the guitar, you're going to find that your arpeggios match up with the chords that you already know how to play. This is especially handy if you know how to play different bar chords. Like we have E-shaped bar chords that are based on your open E chord, right? Anywhere you're playing that, you're playing the arpeggio. It's the same thing. It's just you're picking it out. And same thing if you know A shape, C shape, G shape bar chords, which are pretty cool sounding. That's all just an arpeggio. And then there's like sweep picking arpeggios, where on some strings you're playing 2 notes, and on some strings you're playing 1 note, and it just goes through. And there's all sorts of cool things. But when it comes down to it, arpeggios in their most basic form are the same notes as the chords that you already know how to play. And then the next thing that I would recommend doing, and this helps you really learn the fretboard well, is start memorizing different arpeggio positions, doing single string arpeggios, doing 2-string arpeggios, and doing 3-string arpeggios, especially. So in doing groups of 3 notes. So for example, I could do my C right here on my 6th string, 8th fret. And then on my 5th string, I'm gonna do my E note, which is the 7th fret. And then I would go to the 4th string to be the 3rd string and play the 5th fret for my G. And right there, that's my same arpeggio. So I would play my C chord. Remember, that pattern's gonna shift on your B string, right? And whatever you do, you can find 2- and 3-string arpeggios all over the guitar. And that's before you get into doing different groups of strings too, because we could do stuff where we're finding arpeggios that are called open arpeggios, where what we're doing is we're playing like your 6th string and then skipping your 5th string and doing your 3rd and 4th strings. But we're not gonna get into that today, because I want you to understand what an arpeggio is, that it's the same as the chords that you know how to play. It's the exact same notes. And then it's also thought of as every other note of a scale. So if you know any scales, you can start playing every other note of like your major scale or your minor scale that you might already know, and those are the arpeggios for that. But then it's up to you to start learning some different arpeggios that are the same notes as the chords that you play in different positions on the fretboard. So start by doing single string arpeggios, then go on to doing 2-string arpeggios, and then go on to doing 3-string arpeggios. And if you guys start doing that, that's really, really gonna help you learn the fretboard well. So I hope that makes arpeggios a little bit easier to understand. And now when you hear the word arpeggio, you're not going, what the heck is that? It's something that you already are probably playing. It's just you haven't been told that you're playing it. I was playing these for years before I was told what the heck an arpeggio is, but that's because I had to teach myself, you know, and it was not something that really got covered other than the arpeggiating of chords by playing the notes individually. So I hope that makes arpeggio simple for you and that you can go have some fun and learn your fretboard better by learning where these different arpeggios are on the guitar. Now, with this, I do have a free gift for you at my website. If you go to simpleguitar.com/top10, there you can pick up a free guide called the Top 10 Things to Learn on Guitar First. And it is 10 things that I love to teach beginners when they're first starting out, because it gets you a lot of bang for your buck for your playing so that you can start making some musical sounding awesome stuff right away. And that is going to help you feel more like a rock star than like a total beginner. And you're going to be able to impress everybody with your playing faster. So go to simpleguitar.com/top10, get the top 10 things to learn on guitar first. Have fun with these arpeggios, guys. And thank you so much for watching the video. Do hit the like button if you found this helpful. And if you have any questions about arpeggios or any questions about what we talked about today, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I'll get down there and help you out. And have an awesome day, and I will catch you in the next video.